I don't know what you're so upset about. It's just for one night, Karen snapped, balancing a wine glass in one hand as she fluffed the throw pillows on the couch. You're lucky we let you stay at all. The words hung in the air like smoke, casual, dismissive, and cruelly familiar. I stood in the hallway, suitcase still in hand, staring at the threadbare blanket she had tossed onto the floor like a discarded rag. Behind her, the guest room door was already shut, claimed by her daughter hours ago. My name wasn't even brought up in the conversation. I had driven 8 hours, through a thunderstorm, with a gift in the backseat and a heart that still remembered Uncle Don's kindness. When I had nothing, this visit was supposed to be about family, about showing up, about honoring the one person who had ever made me feel like I belonged. But once again, Karen reminded me where I stood, on the outside, always. You're fine, right? You've always been good at adjusting. She smiled, that sharp little smile she wore like armor, the kind that pretended cruelty was charity. The rest of the family was already asleep, their bellies full from dinner I hadn't been invited to help prepare. Laughter still echoed faintly from the dining room, now dark, but I felt it, like a bruise, fresh and throbbing. I lowered my suitcase silently onto the hardwood. No one offered to help. No one looked back. But as I lay awake on that cold floor, with the smell of someone else's perfume clinging to the carpet, I wasn't thinking about the ache in my back. I was thinking about how they'd never asked who I'd become. And how this exact moment, was the last time they'd ever treat me like I was nothing. This wasn't the first time Karen made sure I knew my place. She had a gift for cloaking cruelty in hospitality. Ever since my parents passed, when I was just 17, I'd floated between relatives like a couch-surfing orphan. Karen had taken me in a few times, always with strings. She'd parade me around like a charity case at family gatherings, then remind me in quiet moments how burdensome I was. Not everyone would have done what I did, she once whispered, loud enough for others to overhear. So even as an adult, with my own life in another state, I kept showing up, out of obligation, guilt, maybe even hope that one day things would be different. But they never were. This visit for Uncle Don's 70th should have been different. He was the only one who ever treated me like family. When my parents died, he made sure I finished school, sent me books, called every birthday until his stroke, a year ago, stole half his words. I wanted to be here for him, not for Karen, not for her curated Instagram family photos, but for the man who made me believe I was more than just a leftover. And yet here I was, sleeping on a cold floor next to a vacuum cleaner and a cracked baseboard, while Karen's daughter, whom I used to tutor for free, stretched out in crisp linens in the room I had once been told was always yours when you visit. In the morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter, coffee's in the pantry. Don't wake anyone. We're sleeping in. No signature. No greeting. Just a reminder, I wasn't a guest. I was a ghost. But ghosts have memories. And mine are sharp. That morning, I didn't eat. I didn't speak. I stepped out into the misty gray of their manicured suburb and started walking. Not away from them, toward something. Something they would never see coming. They never asked what I did for a living. Never cared. As long as I showed up with a bottle of wine and kept my mouth shut, I remained the convenient afterthought. Quiet, unremarkable, pitiful. It suited me, honestly, because while they were measuring worth by kitchen renovations and who got what from grandma's jewelry box, I was building something real. Something mine. 10 years ago, I left this town with $412 to my name and a laptop with a cracked screen. I slept in a shared apartment with 4 other people and worked nights cleaning offices, scrubbing the floor Karen wouldn't even let me sleep on. During the day, I taught myself 3D design. Landscaping started as a hobby, photoshopping trees onto blank yards, imagining peace in places that felt like war. Now, I design outdoor spaces for luxury clients who don't blink at a 6-figure price tag for tranquility. I consult remotely, fly out twice a quarter, and my name appears in small print on a few architecture firm portfolios across the country. I own 2 rental duplexes in Phoenix, both paid off. My accountant says I could semi-retire before 40 if I wanted. But the best part? They don't know a thing. Not Karen. Not her husband, with his passive-aggressive jabs about people who just coast through life. Not her daughter, who once posted a photo of me on social media captioned, "Family means taking care of those who have less." Let them believe I have less. Let them believe I still need them. Because now I had something they couldn't imagine. Leverage. And when I saw that abandoned house next door, choked in weeds and shaded by an overgrown maple, I didn't see an eyesore. I saw opportunity. A canvas. A stage. And I knew exactly what I was going to build. Not just a home. Proof. From the sidewalk, the house looked like it was holding its breath, windows dusty with neglect, paint curling from its frame like old skin. A rusted chain-link fence sagged in the middle, and a "for sale by owner" sign leaned sideways like it had given up. Most people would have seen it tear down. I saw a stage. A perfect vantage point. It sat right next to Karen's oversized colonial, close enough to share a property line, distant enough to be completely separate. No HOA meant no rules. No Karen on the board. No one to tell me what I could and couldn't build. The backyard faced hers directly. And I could already picture it, a pool that shimmered at night. Privacy hedges cut just low enough for a certain someone to catch a glimpse of everything they couldn't touch. I called the number that morning. The owner, a retired electrician who'd moved to Florida, was desperate to offload the place. His kids didn't want it. It had been sitting empty for 2 years. I made a full cash offer by noon, sight unseen inside. He didn't even negotiate. I closed in 7 days. But I didn't stop there. I hired the best. Quietly. A construction team I'd worked with on my Phoenix properties. An underground pool designer from Santa Barbara. A solar lighting specialist. I told them, elegant. Serene. But it has to make a statement. They delivered. As walls came down and new ones rose, Karen stayed oblivious. Her backyard barbecues continued as if nothing had changed, smoke wafting over the fence while she laughed loudly at her own jokes. She didn't know I could hear everything. But one evening, as I reviewed layout options for the pool lighting, I heard her voice float over the fence, "God, I wish someone would do something with that dump next door. It's ruining the neighborhood." I almost laughed. Someone was doing something, all right, and soon, her kingdom, the one built on control, smugness, and social clout, was going to have a very different view. Because this wasn't just about a house anymore. This was about rewriting the story they thought they knew, the one where I was always the poor cousin, the floor sleeper, the easy to ignore. And this time, I wouldn't be knocking on their door. They'd be looking over the fence at mine. Revenge isn't loud. Not the kind that lasts. The kind that lasts is designed like a garden, planted with intention, fed in silence, and allowed to bloom when the season is right. Once the deed was signed and the permits approved, I moved like a shadow. My name was never listed on the construction signs. I used an LLC registered out of state. Even the contractors knew me only as Ms. Wren, a name I used for business. When discretion mattered, Karen had no idea her family thought the new owner was some investor flipping it. She even joked about it over wine one night, saying, "Maybe we'll finally get someone who mows the lawn." I was on the other side of the fence when she said it, running my hands through the fresh turf that was already greener than hers. The transformation unfolded slowly, but beautifully. The crumbling house was gutted and reborn with warm cedar accents and clean black steel lines. I added a glass sunroom at the back, just visible from her second-floor guest room window. Then came the pool, an oasis with curved edges and underwater lighting that glowed like candlelight at dusk. I placed it right where her dining room window faced. Subtle. I wasn't rubbing it in, not yet. I timed my move in strategically, just before Uncle Don's next family gathering. The invites had gone out. Karen, of course, was hosting again, desperate to outdo her own image from last year. She never asked if I was coming, but I was already next door. I had my housewarming party 2 nights before her dinner. Just a small gathering, some old clients, a few friends, a well-known interior design blogger who owed me a favor. No one rowdy. Just elegance. Laughter. Music. The smell of grilled sea bass and citrus. I watched from the water, sipping a cucumber cocktail as Karen stepped onto her patio in her floral robe, blinking into the light. She froze. You could see it in her eyes, the moment her brain registered what she was seeing, me, barefoot, smiling, surrounded by sophistication she couldn't command or copy. She walked to the fence. "Is this your place?" she asked, like it might not be real. I didn't say much. Just looked at her and said, "Yay. Finished it last week. You can see the whole yard from your kitchen, right?" Her mouth moved, but no words came out. And I smiled wider, not out of spite, but peace, because the best revenge is never delivered with fury. It's served in comfort, luxury, and unmistakable proof that you no longer need anything from the people who once made you beg. Uncle Don's birthday dinner was held at the same venue as last year, a rented hall with white tablecloths, cheap wine, and too much cologne. I arrived 10 minutes late on purpose. Let them feel my absence first. When I walked in, heads turned, not because I made a scene, but because I didn't have to. I wasn't wearing anything flashy, just a tailored navy dress and quiet confidence. I had something far more valuable than sparkle, presence. Karen's smile faltered the moment she saw me. Her eyes darted to my shoes, my earrings, then to the man walking beside me, Michael, a real estate developer and one of my longtime clients. He had a habit of speaking softly and carrying legal authority like a velvet hammer. He greeted everyone warmly, but when Karen tried to shake his hand, he just nodded and kept walking. She blinked. She had no idea who he was, but she could tell he mattered. Dinner was awkward. Karen kept talking, loudly, about her daughter's internship at a local salon and how they just love having her around. I let her finish every sentence. I didn't challenge her. I didn't need to. Halfway through the meal, Uncle Don turned to me and asked, "Did you end up getting that place by the big maple tree?" The whole table went quiet. I smiled. "Yes. It's finished now. You should come by. I built a pool, just like you used to talk about." Karen's fork paused mid-air. You bought that house," she blurted, too loud. I looked at her. I did. But that place was falling apart. "It's been empty for 2 years, I said calmly. "I made a cash offer. Got it for less than market. No bank involved." The silence returned, thicker this time. I leaned forward. "Funny thing is, I remember when you told me the guest room was full, and I had to sleep on the floor." I smiled. "And now, I've got 3 guest rooms, and a heated pool. You're welcome to visit sometime. Just let me know in advance, my schedule's tight." Karen flushed. Her husband cleared his throat. No one laughed. Uncle Don reached for my hand, and squeezed it, pride in his faded eyes. "Knew you'd do something special," he whispered. The night ended quietly, but the ripple had already begun. Word spread. Family members, who used to forget my name, now asked me about property investments. Karen shrank inside herself, unable to reconcile who I'd been with who I'd become, and I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. Her silence was enough. It took less than 3 months after that dinner for Karen to put her house on the market. She didn't announce it publicly. She just started making small comments. "The neighborhood's changing, we've outgrown this place, maybe it's time for something quieter." But everyone knew. The listing went live, and the price was laughably high. Too high. Out of sync with the market. She wasn't trying to sell the house. She was trying to reassert her value, but buyers weren't interested in her marble countertops or imported backsplash. They wanted to know about the modern remodel next door, the one with the garden that lights up at night, the one with the waterfall edge pool, and the architect's touch, the one everyone now pointed at during open houses. Mine. Karen's house sat for weeks. Then months. She lowered the price twice. Meanwhile, I was featured in an online design magazine. A lifestyle influencer made a video tour of my home that went viral. One of my clients hosted a charity auction in my backyard that raised 6 figures for local scholarships. People who never returned my messages years ago now sent me invitations, partnership pitches, flattery wrapped in sugar-coated apologies. But the best moment came one Saturday morning when Uncle Don came by for coffee. He walked slowly, his gait uneven, cane tapping against the stone path I'd designed with him in mind. I helped him into the sunroom and poured him a cup. "Never thought I'd sit in a place like this," he said, looking out at the pool. "You helped build it," I said simply. He smiled, soft and full. Then he reached into his coat pocket and handed me something, a small, aged envelope with my name written in his handwriting. "I never told anyone this, but years ago, when your parents passed, I set a little aside. I wanted to give it to you when the time was right, when I knew you were going to be okay." I opened it, stunned. A check. Modest by today's standards. But the meaning behind it. Everything. "You already gave me what I needed," I told him. "Belief." He nodded, eyes glassy. "And look what you did with it." Outside, a realtor was walking a young couple through Karen's backyard. They paused at the fence, pointing over it, at my house, my pool, my garden. The realtor gestured nervously, knowing where the real interest lay. Karen watched from behind her curtain. And I, for once, didn't feel spite. Just peace. Because I didn't need revenge anymore. I had something better: freedom, foundation, and finally, respect. From the floor of her guest room to the heart of my own home. And they all saw it.